Hi, welcome to Breathe Well Coaching. My name is Coach Erin. If you are coming back from a pregnancy, you are newly postpartum, even if you've been postpartum for several months or even several years, and you're looking to come back to exercise, you're looking for core exercises specifically, I'm so glad you're here. This is the conversation that I wish I would have had with my provider prior to going back to exercise. And listen, I have been in the wellness and fitness world for 17 years, and I didn't know a lot of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today. So before you go back to exercise and you start pushing your body really hard, potentially doing some of the things you were doing in your pregnancy, or even doing things that you were doing prior to being pregnant, I want you to stop and take a moment and just let's talk through some education about what is important and where it's important to start when you're returning to exercise after having a baby. So that's what this conversation is about today. I'm in my kids' bed, and which I feel like moms will be comfortable in this kind of setting. If you're not a mom, maybe you're working with you're a trainer, and you're just here for more information about exercise and postpartum and connecting back to our core. Thank you for being here. Hopefully this will be really informative for you. Please do not click away. So if you are a mom and you are just like, I am ready for that core exercise, I don't want to hear about all this, I really want to caution you that that's not a wonderful mindset when it comes to injury prevention and your long-term health, because there are certain things you can do in this postpartum period that can really create some very difficult injuries that I feel like doctors and physical therapists aren't talking about enough. So these things are anything that's going to increase intra-abdominal pressure, which is basically all exercise. If you don't know how to manage pressure correctly using proper breathing mechanics, using proper movement mechanics, and using activation and the correct muscles to manage that pressure, you can set yourself up for injuries. What are these types of injuries? These are usually hernias, any type of prolapse, whether it's on the pelvic floor, continued hernia or a prolapse, separation of the abdominal section. So if you carried a child to the third term, or usually it happens even earlier, you have some type of diastasis recti, and that's natural. That's normal. And most therapists and corrective exercise specialists like myself, I'm a physiologist, will tell you that that's normal. But what we don't want to do is to an already weakened muscle, we don't want to start to add a lot of pressure when it's not ready. And certainly when we're not breathing correctly. So I'll definitely be going over that today. There's also back injuries. So low back pain, disc herniation, sometimes neck problems. A lot of this can be due to first a dysregulated breathing pattern and then tightened or weakened muscles that aren't able to activate the way they need to. So with most women, especially when we start to add the element of mental health into this, we really need to consider what exercises are going to be the best for us right now. And just be gracious with yourself. You don't have to go back into doing planks and crunches and squats and deadlifts and running. Like all these things are going to create a lot of impact on abdominal section here, so your diastasis recti, on your pelvic floor, on your low back. What I'd love every woman to know is that when you are stressed for a prolonged period of time, your breathing pattern changes usually. So it can get quicker, more shallow. We can get into these like holding breathing patterns, like we're bracing, and we can get into a reversed breathing pattern where you're inhaling and you're sucking in on that inhale. And that paradoxical breathing pattern, reversed breathing pattern, note is the one I want to bring attention to right now, because most women who have carried a child here have had some of their anatomy moved. We all know this. We all feel this. You know, there's a lot more pressure down, so those muscles have stretched, the belly stretched, but the respiratory diaphragm, which is your primary breathing muscle, has been moved up into the rib cage cavity here, into this torso. So it moves up, and this gets you stuck in a inhalation breathing pattern. So you're shallow breathing, and this tends to even make some of my moms go into a mouth breathing pattern. All of these are dysfunctional breathing patterns. And if you don't work on them first, exercise is just going to stress out your system more, and you're not going to be able to manage that pressure so that you can stay clear of injury. So what we have to understand first is your body's changed. I know you know this, and I know you're probably really ready to get back to whatever health or whatever fitness level you might have had before, or even establishing a new one. I get it. But that's going to be a lot harder if you have a major injury like prolapse or disc herniation or diastasis recti worsening. So just trust me here from somebody who has lived it, that it's not worth it. So if you're not breathing well and you're not breathing regularly and your breath is really irregular, maybe you're holding tension in the belly a lot, maybe you're mouth breathing, maybe you're doing that paradoxical inhaling and sucking in on that inhale, we want to rework that breathing pattern. You will find tons of videos on my channel that help you slow down and reestablish a good breathing pattern. That's a wonderful place for a new mom to start. I actually really wish doctors, when they're clearing you at 6 or 8 weeks, were like, first thing I want you to work on is your breathing pattern. Because if you start to do a bunch of resistance with poor breathing habits, you're going to get injured. But the truth of the matter is, many of the doctors don't know this information. I certainly didn't even know it, and I was in the fitness and wellness world. So I had to go through major injuries, surgery in my back, potentially surgery in the future in my pelvic floor, all because of not being able to manage pressure well and not understanding that that's a huge piece of postpartum recovery. So don't do like I did and jump back into exercise too soon. If you are already feeling that you have that ab separation, then that's an indicator, no, we have got to work on getting the transverse abdominals, those deeper layers of our core engaged. We got to rework the breathing pattern, and we will start small from there. And so in this coming year, I'm actually bringing on a new program called Breathe Pelvic Health, and I am a certified corrective exercise specialist for pelvic health. So after somebody's gone through pelvic floor PT, or they've done physical therapy for their diastasis recti, then they come see me for how you incorporate exercise. So this is just the first portion of this chat. So continuing on with reasons why I don't believe it would be a good idea to start exercise is if you're experiencing postpartum anxiety. So postpartum anxiety is extremely common. Mine was so bad that I was having panic attacks postpartum. Now, a lot of that was fueled from a very traumatic labor as well as sexual trauma from my past. So mine was kind of that's my story. Your story might be different or might be similar, but I was having major postpartum anxiety in that year following having our babies. So exercise wasn't actually helping me, the type of exercise I was doing. It was weakening my resiliency. So it was adding more cortisol, more stress hormone to my body. It was adding more oxidative stress. So my nervous system was in that sympathetic nervous system fight or flight, and many new moms are here. And when we look at the nervous system, you have the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system state, and then you have the parasympathetic nervous system state, that rest and digest. When we are functioning well, we should be naturally modulating throughout these nervous system states throughout the day. We should be upregulated and energized when we wake up. I know. And we should be more in that parasympathetic relaxation state when we go to bed and go to sleep. So looking at the nervous system and looking at your stress levels and anxiety, whether or not you're supported as a new mom, whether or not you're having some of these other injuries and you're feeling really anxious, that would be a good indicator that exercise, it might not be the first thing you want to do. You might want to down-regulate your nervous system. And I'll include a few links to different videos I have, progressive muscle relaxation, meditation, breathing exercises. This would be a really good place to start if you are feeling really stressed. In just a few minutes a day, and I know your time is very valuable. If you're still with me, thank you. Hit that like, subscribe, comment. Let's get connected. But I know your time's valuable. I know you have baby moments of time for yourself. So trust me when I say that pushing yourself when you're already under a ton of stress, it just is a recipe for disaster. So give yourself the grace to restore your nervous system and heal if you are stressed, anxious, dealing with injury, before you start adding on more and trying to lose the baby weight. The fact of trying to lose the baby weight, even when we look at nutrition and really not eating as much as you need to, or not eating all the food groups and getting the nutrients you need, like that can be another way of stressing your body. So I just see women pushing themselves too hard in this realm, and I wanted to have a real conversation about it. The other thing about exercise is we know that that's postpartum anxiety, but what about postpartum depression, which is also very common? Now, to me, in this, when we're dealing with depression, it actually is good to exercise. You're going to get some of those beneficial hormones that can help you. And so, in both cases, even anxiety and postpartum depression, a little bit of light exercise will be okay. Like getting outside and walking, I think that's a really wonderful exercise for moms postpartum. You're getting fresh air, you're, able to stroll your baby around and they get all the, connection with nature, but it's also just low intensity cardio that's starting to mobilize and get the blood flowing again. Now, if you're doing cardio or any type of exercise, keep it moderate and make sure you're breathing well. So take the time to reestablish those good breathing mechanics. And I will include a video, like I mentioned, for some great breathing sessions that you can do to start. And then again, if you need help on your journey postpartum and you're experiencing that low back pain or diastasis recti or pressure down on the pelvic floor, urgency, hemorrhoids, anal fissures, like these are all indicators that that you're not managing that pressure well. So that is a good clue, and especially if you're having postpartum anxiety or depression, to connect with your provider. Tell them what's going on. Get a referral to a therapist, a mental health counselor. Get a referral to a pelvic floor physical therapist. And then after you've done those types of things, come see me. Come work with me, okay? And let's make sure that your exercise is appropriate as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. If I still have your attention, that's amazing. I do want to show you a quick breathing technique just to get you started. I know I'm doing this in my kid's bed, but outside was kind of messy right now. So don't judge me. Don't judge me, moms. I know you won't. So I'm going to go ahead and sit where I'm at, and I'm having my legs uncrossed. You can also sit in a seated position. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch my rib cage here. And I want you to notice that the ribs are in the front and the back of the body. So it's a literal cage, and it can become like a cage if you're breathing wrong. So there's this muscle attached to the ribs in the front and the back, and it also has attachments to your low back and all the way up into your neck. So I get a lot of moms who are like, my neck hurts, my back hurts. I'm like, how are you breathing? So we want to make sure that we're using this respiratory diaphragm for our inhalation, and that when we exhale, everything hugs in. What I see a lot of moms do when I say take a breath, and you can try this yourself, they take a breath and they go and they just suck in, and that respiratory diaphragm moves out. That would be similar to me preparing for a car to hit me. I would go, if you've almost ever been in an accident, that's what you do. You go, that's a stress signal to the nervous system. That's telling your body, hey, we got to fight, flight, or freeze. We got to do something. We got to respond. And so what we want to do is we want to inhale and expand the ribs out laterally or horizontally out to the side, not up. We're not sucking in. We're going to inhale, expand, and exhale, feel everything come in. Your neck and shoulders are secondary breathing muscles, so they move a little bit, but they're not the primary breathing muscle. When you inhale, you should feel a slight stretch on the belly. Don't push it out. You want to have equal, even pressure and opening in the belly, in the low back, in the pelvic floor, in the ribs. So everything, inhale, opens up, and exhale, we close. Everything hugs in and softens. And that's the correct breathing pattern I want you to work on. This will help activate that respiratory diaphragm, which is a muscle, and we need it. We need it so much for a lot of other reasons I won't get into today. It's a very unique muscle, but I want you to work on that pattern. And then if you're sitting there with your child, and sometimes as moms, we're shushing our baby. Well, that shushing sound can be really calming to the nervous system. So I want you to practice slowing down your breathing rate, especially if you've been stressed and anxious. And I want you to inhale for 4 seconds, 360-degree expansion, and then exhale Feel that drawing in. So it's an inhale for 4 and it's an exhale. Go to the end of your breath. It should be longer than 4 seconds. And just taking 10 breaths like that periodically throughout the day, when you notice maybe you're slipping into some of that dysfunctional breathing pattern, like the holding and the mouth breathing or the shallow breathing. If you notice any one of those clues that you are not breathing optimally, go to the 360-degree breath. And if you like the shushing exhale, you can add that in. I hope you found this helpful and look for more videos on this topic. If you have questions or comments, let me know. If you want to jump on that free discovery call, then the link will be in the description below. Breathe well. Have a great day.